According to the computer.
And get the thing out of my screen. All right. Hello out there in the internet world. Welcome to our Land Down Under hangout for what month is it? It's September. And we read Legends and Lattes. I don't know what month it is. It's almost the end of the year. So yeah, that was my pick. And it's by Travis Baldree. Thank you. Kirsten's holding up the physical copy. This book has 2 covers. That's my favorite, but it also has another one with with the orc and the 2
Kind of
looks like
that
this
one. Yeah, although it is colored. It's colored on the as the cover. It's very pretty. So yeah, thank you, Kirsten. We'll start with I guess initial thoughts, and then if anyone has any specific themes or points they want to talk about, then we'll go around as per usual. So I guess I'll start first. I really enjoyed it. I picked this on purpose because I needed something that was like, you know, low stakes. It was supposed to be cozy. July was kind of a hard month for us in our household, so because we were like saying goodbye to some people, so it was really nice to have this cozy read that I could just kind of grab. And also, I am the coffee fiend. As far as I know, I think I'm the massive coffee fiend in the book club. Everyone else is really into the tea, and I'm like
Sarah.
coffee all the time.
Sarah's the other coffee fiend.
Sarah's the other coffee fiend. Sorry, Sarah, you are, and you also
I
have
don't like tea. I'm coffee all the way, friend.
Are you? Okay. I'm sorry. Everyone always talks about tea, so I'm just kind of like, yeah. But yes, so we do have, okay, so my apologies. We have some coffee fans as well too. So that was always exciting. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was a nice, fun, cozy, low stakes read for me. And I actually read through it twice because it's also an easy read, I found, in my opinion. So I'm interested to hear everyone else's thoughts and what you thought about it. We'll go from the top. I'll start with Mel.
Well, yes. So this was my second read through because I read it last year, and honestly, I think I enjoyed it more the second time around because I knew what I was expecting. The first time I was just a smidge disappointed by the romance element, but the second time around, because I knew how they were going to do it and how it was going to be, I could just relax into it, and I was actually really quite happy with it. So otherwise, great read, very cozy, love it. As a non-coffee drinker entirely, I could still enjoy this story.
That's true. You really are not a coffee fan, so.
You're like him. You're all about the baked goods.
Yeah.
Look, honestly, I could appreciate the aesthetic and the enjoyment because I was like, I'll just pretend it's tea.
Yeah, I think you could probably in some cases swap it out and make it tea, and it would still have that same nice, and a lot of the other themes, because coffee is kind of central, but there's all these other things that I found sort of went around it. Kirsten, what was your thoughts?
I really enjoyed it as well. I was a bit worried that I wasn't going to finish it because I took it on the plane with me for this work trip and then didn't end up reading on the plane because I was too stressed out. And I was like, oh crap, I've left it too late. And when I picked it up, it was like, oh yeah, I can easily read this in a couple of days. So it was really good. The only thing that I was like, I think Mel, this is kind of what you said, but I was like, wow, the romance was a little bit too slow burn for my tastes. But I really enjoyed the whole vibe of the book. I really liked the themes of it. And yeah, I found it really quick and easy to read and nice and cozy. So I really liked it. I will read the next one.
Elizabeth.
Yeah, okay. This is my second time through. I previously read it and reviewed it back in November of last year, and that was for its re-release with Tor because it had originally been self-published. And this time around, I went audiobook since that was accessible to me and was a different way of getting to the narrative. I think I agree with Mel. I enjoyed it maybe a little more the second time around because I knew what to expect. I also had some thoughts about the romance elements that I can unpack a bit later. And I had a one reservation about the madrigal. But on the whole, it was just really lovely, and I just really want some chocolate croissants now.
Kim.
I really enjoyed it too. I did the audiobook because that's what my library had. Didn't take me long to to listen to it. It took a few days. It was that sort of thing where I'd get to work and go, oh, Oh, now I have to go to work. I have to turn it off. I don't want to turn it off. Can my trip take a bit longer, please? So yeah, I really enjoyed it. It felt like it, while the romance was a slow burn, it felt like it was in a very short period of time. Even if it wasn't, it didn't feel like the time had passed too much. So I kind of sort of understand that it didn't go too quickly, and it was kind of nice to have a lot of those the building of the story and the other characters and stuff instead of just concentrating on the romance, even though that would have been good as well. And of course, Amity must be one of my favorite characters, of course.
Of course, of course.
Lisa.
Yes, I really enjoyed it. I mean, the romance to me was like, it was sweet and all, but that wasn't what I enjoyed most. Like, as in, I wasn't looking for that. It was just that the interactions, the food, food. Yeah, it was great, and yeah, not out to the dire cat, which Chris was waiting for me to get to that bit because I started reading it first and then he passed me. So I definitely really enjoyed it. It was a great pick.
Nay.
So I really enjoyed it. I also listened to it as an audiobook. I did have a bit of difficulty getting into it in the beginning because I found Travis's voice really off-putting. Like it kept pulling me out of the story. But once I kind of got into it, it was okay. I really enjoyed the sort of found familyness of it. That, like, I knew that it was a super ultra slow burn romance. Like, I knew there was going to be basically nothing because TikTok has spoiled me. But I really enjoyed how they brought that through and how it wasn't a big deal. Like, it wasn't like, oh my God, I've suddenly fallen. Like, she just was like, yeah, I want you to live with me. I really like you. Like, it wasn't a big deal. And I really liked that.
Sarah.
Hello. I really like this. I tried to get through. I did a digital book because that's what my library actually had it, and I didn't have to be the 217th person in line. It was amazing. So I was like, oh, but someone did reserve it, so I only got 70% through a reread because I roared through this last week. And I'm mostly doing audiobooks, so it actually was kind of nice to force me to sit down and actually spend spend time reading and having a tea or having a coffee and a baked good and actually just enjoying the ritual of it. Because normally, and there was a kind of a guilt around it, this was the perfect book to kind of get you out of the guilt of, oh, I'm not being productive while I, do two things at once while I listen to an audiobook. So it was just lovely. And I really enjoyed it the first time around, to the point that I sat and read for 3 hours because I was like, just enjoying the second half so much. But I was really enjoying the reread again because I knew what was going to happen, and I'm keen to talk romance stuff as well because I had a bit of disappointment there, but it might be a bit different to what others in the group think. And when the dire cat showed up, I was like, oh well, I'm here for it. So that was just awesome. I just was like, yep. And I spent a lot of time reading this and then going and finding my cat to kind of go like, you have to be with me when I read this, like that goes, because I have to have my own dire cat. And finally, I think it was also just the world building. I've never read any of Travis's stuff before, but I really enjoyed the world that they built and felt. Yeah, it felt. It wasn't too ye oldie as well. Like, there was a lot of vernacular, and I didn't get pulled out by the vernacular. That was the other thing I thought was interesting. Like, there was some swearing, there was some use of the word dickhead, which I don't, I've never heard in kind of ye old fantasy before. But this was, I didn't pull me out as much as it has in previous books that we've talked about, where you kind of go, would they have said that? So yeah, so that was it.
If I can just jump in quickly, Sarah, it's a debut novel.
Oh, okay, great. Well,
Go,
good
go.
job. Good job.
Hilariously, although I think he is a narrator. I think he
Yeah.
has a history of narrating books. So which is
Oh,
interesting for people who
of
didn't like his
course.
narration. That's where he came from first, which is kind of funny.
That's right. I did read that, and now what Naomi had said about Travis's voice pulled her out of like now things are making sense, because I thought you just meant the way that he wrote, and then I forgot that he's a professional narrator. So, yes, sorry.
Oh, great. Chris, you're up.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. I think most of the things I could possibly say have been said. Loved the Diacat, obviously. I also just liked the general building, the way the setting was put together, and the development didn't feel rushed. It came together, in a very comfortable and well written way.
Okay, and lastly, Shig.
Yeah, I really liked it. I only read about 70% of it, and the last few pages here and there, so that I could spoiler it myself before everyone else did. That way, I could look at context rather than asking other people, being confused. So most of what I've got to is just before that. I've only just started reading the bit where they really start building up the tension, and I really wish I'd stopped reading just a few minutes before that. Because I really like the way the whole world, everything was brought together, and how it's like she's obviously really trying to build a community, and is really succeeded that, and is coming in cold and is really anxious about like, oh, am I doing this right? And it just slowly comes together because of the people around, and yeah, and of course there's a Diacat there. I have a Diacat. Like, why wouldn't there be a Diacat? Why wouldn't people just accept the Diacat? Like the idea, the Diacat's so awesome that the solution to any conflict isn't to just literally throw the Diacat at people, because they make their own rules.
Yep.
But no, I've really enjoyed what I've read, to the point that like the actual the story and the world building is so great that the actual story, the actual conflict and resolution that's going to be set in there, I don't actually even feel I need, because I've really enjoyed everything else.
Yeah.
I would actually add on to that. I think I could just read like the first half of this book like over and over again, just as a constant comfort. It's just like the first half where she's getting all set up and like meeting everybody and all of that. Like, it's just so delightful.
Okay.
Also, food. God.
Yep.
Yeah.
we all know most of this book club loves a found family story.
Yeah, we do.
It's hard not to love a found family story.
This is true.
Yeah.
So it sounds like we all kind of want to unpack or share our thoughts about the romance thing. But before we get to that, because we'll just kind of like, when we open that, we'll just run with it, and I'm sure it's going to go for a while. Maybe we go back to the world building a little bit, and the because so for me, when I didn't think about this so much the first time I read it. So I read the physical book the first time, and then when I did my reread, I actually listened to the audiobook, just so I could have it in the background while I was doing other stuff, because I'm really shit with Kobo at the moment. I can't see my annotations. I had gone through an annotated book. I had a plan, and I can't get to them because it won't let me export. So thanks for that, Kobo. Anyhow, yeah. So I went and I was listening to the audiobook as my reread this week. And the second time through, for me, I was looking at this going, okay, so this is a found family thing for sure, but also this experience of building your business and what it's like to someone starting a business from scratch and changing careers, because she's effectively your main character's going from something that's basically built into her community, built into how everyone else perceives her, just how she looks. And she's having this massive life change and career change because this is what she wants to do. And so she is starting from scratch, just completely. And then also that kind of leads into these pitfalls that her counterpart Tandri brings up a lot as well, with this idea of, well, you're like, basically Tandri's saying your business should not be your life. And whenever that conversation went the second time, I went, oh, but you know what? That actually happens. Everyone I know who starts their own business, those first 5 years until you're out of the red, you do nothing. Like, your entire world is your business, because it is high stakes. It's very rare for it to not feel high stakes or to not be high stakes. So
Yeah.
I thought he
And
did a really
especially,
good job.
especially if it's your passion, and it absolutely was Viv's passion.
Mm.
Yeah.
So she's living her passion, and I've heard that same thing as well, like where I've had people who were musicians or and they were doing that professionally and then decided I love that and I'm turning it into my job, so I'm losing my passion for it. So I've heard it the other way around, whereas she's kind of found her passion later in life when she's ready to set up a business around it, if that makes sense. So I really love that aspect to it too.
Yeah. I don't think I definitely didn't disagree with Tandre's like warnings, because you need boundaries, because otherwise that's what happens is if it implodes, it is, you do feel like you've lost everything and then you're starting over from scratch again because you don't keep that. But her community was where her clients were, her employees and everything like that, because that's all she had, like because she was starting so completely from scratch. So I just thought that was very interesting. But and I think it was really, for me, easy to kind of follow in and feel really like connect with her and feel really sad whenever everything did, when the fire happened, because all of his writing around what she would think, like, because you were hearing the coffee, or you were smelling the coffee through her love of the coffee, and you were tasting all of the food through her or through Tandre, which I thought was very well done. So he did a great job with the world building. Like I really was just like, I can taste that. And yes, Biscotti does that. And like I kind of, because I had experienced it myself, I could also anticipate how it was going to be. And then he landed it, in my opinion. So I don't know if everyone else felt about that before we get into, because I know we're all going to talk about it. But
I wanted to add what really was a really sweet aspect of the world building for me was the menu board and the concept state of the menu board. That was just, it was just a delightful way of structuring, like, this is how the cafe is developing, and you know, little things like the mugs and the live music, and
I thought when I started hearing them read it out again, because I was doing the audio book, I couldn't just skim past it. I'm like, oh, they're going to read this out every time. And then after they read it out the second time, I'm like, actually, that's kind of nice that they've gone through it all again. And then there's that little bit of extra in it. And I'm like, oh, I don't actually mind that they're reading almost the same thing every now and again. It was actually nice just to hear them reiterate it and then add that next thing to the menu.
Speaking of dire cats.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. There's a dire cat on screen.
Sorry, she's
present us.
Well, Kiki hasn't made her tail appearance yet, so obviously someone else had to step in.
Yes, thank you, Song.
Sure, Kiki will
I don't know where
shark
she
fin us later.
Yeah,
I think I can see a dog in the background there with Mel. There.
Oh yes,
with Mel.
Yeah.
The head just there. Yeah. Dire pug.
It is a pug.
Dire pug. I love.
It's not much dire about him.
So about the menu. So if for people who read the physical book, or I guess for people who did the audio book, the physical book, actually they did a really nice job of giving you the image of it, so you could actually see a bit of the artistic work, at least in the version I had.
I'm trying to find.
That'd be really nice.
So so you could also see, and I think mine also showed a little sketch of the mug whenever Tandre was.
Here we go.
Oh,
there we go.
It's not very easy to see.
Yeah.
Oh, but I could get the gist of it. Yeah. Cool.
Okay, cool. Yeah, in the digital version at the beginning of each chapter, there was a little drawing of what was going to be alluded to, which was really nice. Yeah, that was cute. So I think we got kind of little flourishes in the digital version, but I didn't get quite the same layout that you had in the physical version.
Yeah, I really appreciated that. It was nice to kind of.
Yeah, I did too. The font and everything is really nice.
Yeah. It was really nice also that so much of what his descriptions were, I liked them, and I felt they were so good that often whenever I would get the next visualization, it gelled really nicely. So I felt like what he was describing to me, what I was building in my head, ended up matching with what other people were drawing out, which was kind of nice. So I just felt like that was a good attestation to how he described everything. But
I felt like I could, along with imagining the flavors and the tastes and the smells, I felt like I could imagine Tandre's art. Like I think
you use things that they were very like you'd see in a normal cafe. He was describing that sort of, the cup with the steam or the coffee beans and little flourishes, and you're like, oh yeah, I've seen that at a coffee shop before. So it was really easy to imagine that.
That's true. Yeah, that is true. Yeah. Okay. Do we want to unpack the romance? Thoughts on the romance?
I definitely have thoughts on the romance.
Elizabeth, you kick us off then.
Well, I think on my first read, I was a little bit disappointed. I felt it was a little understated. But as I said, I first read this to review for Nerds of a Feather, so I had to sit down and think about it afterwards. And I'm a romance reader, so I always like romance in my stories. And that's not the audience for this book. This is aimed at fantasy readers who sometimes can be quite allergic to romance. So I think having it understated in the sense that it was kind of a good compromise in a way, but also that it plays in to the story that's being told, because Tandri has issues with being pigeonholed because she's a succubus. And so to kind of really play up that romance element would kind of detract from that message. And so I thought playing it in the way that it did, and it also, plays to the strengths of the writer, who I'm sure is, not a romance writer. So in a sense, he really took the best approach possible.
I would also suggest that I think part of why I was expecting it to be more romance was the cover, which I wonder if perhaps for people who came in with the newer cover and weren't so familiar with the old cover, because I read it when it was self-published. I read it before the new cover. It wasn't even picked up at this time I read it. And so we only had the cover with the two of them on the front. And so it was sort of a very forward focus. Oh, I think this is going to have good romance in it, sort of element to it. So I wonder if that plays into it. Whereas like the second round, I knew what it was, and so I was good.
Question though, Mel, was it the cover where they're back to back?
Yeah.
Because that's like, I understand what you're saying about it, like it's the two of them and whatnot, but that's not really a romancy sort of.
Oh, I read it as romance immediately.
Okay, fair enough.
Sorry. So that, like, the visual element and how it was posed and everything, to me screamed romance.
Interesting.
Fair
It's
enough.
a scream to me more the partnership. I didn't have a cover, and I really prefer the second cover. But I was glad to have the visual reference of the two of them. But at the same time, I kind of also wanted to form my own kind of opinions on what everybody looked like. So I was kind of glad there wasn't too much of that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And this is probably again to my own kind of sometimes frustrations with stories, especially around, and it's also sci-fi and fantasy as well, is like, why does there always have to be a romance? That's kind of where I went with this, where it's like, it was nice and understated, but I was also like, really, you guys, like, how did you get, like, because I was a little bit the same. I was like, how did you ever get to get, like, there were no signs for it was like there was very not there. But I was also, I really like it when there's strong friendships, and they just seem to be two people who were a bit lost, who'd found kinship. And I guess this is my own preference, I kind of also just wanted it to be a really strong best friend story, as opposed to, there was, people always have to get together. I love that they found trust and partnership in each other. So that was kind of my disappointment. It wasn't a frustration, it was more of a little bit of disappointment of going, oh, of course, great, we've got a romance, as opposed to a true found friends,
because there's so few of them.
I kind of feel like they're both, though. Like, I feel like I feel like they might be the sort that, should the romance fizzle out, they will still remain lifelong friends who are family kind of thing. Like, I feel like it was that kind of a not, and that's just sort of traditional you know,
Yeah.
torrid kind of romance at all. Like, just like, yeah.
Yeah. And that's just my own thing. Where it's like, because it was so understated, I was like, oh, we are going there, because, you know, I just thought that, like, some of the touching very much felt like, you know, the way many of us are with our friends, it shows affection, it shows trust, as opposed to, you know, and these were two people who had come from places where they found it hard to trust people. Like, you know, like we had Fennis, for God's sake, who she had to work with, who turned out to be the biggest asshole ever. So, you know, and poor Tandria had been through the ringer with all the university dickheads. So, you know, I just, I liked that these two women found one another and found trust, and they, which is always a really nice thing, is like the sum of their parts, you know, was greater than, you know what I mean. I can't remember what the saying is, but like together they were better. Like Tandria understood marketing and all of, yeah. So
I actually found the whole relationship between Viv and Tandria really jarring in a couple of bits, because Tandria kept going home, like somewhere else, and I'm like, wait, what? Why is she going anywhere else? Like, she's going upstairs, right? Like,
well, I mean,
that
she
was
is
more jarring to me than anything else. After a while, it just came in, so it was just so organically built. And it's like, well, I can see it. I guess you guys will figure it out eventually.
Which was also quite a funny running joke through the book as well. Everyone's like, oh, you mean you haven't yet? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like, you mean you're not what? Okay. And she's and Viv's like, what? And they're like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
I can
say
so
anything.
relate to that, because that is how I like am myself, or have been. Like, it's like, oh no, we're just friends. But everyone else is like, no, you're really not. Like, why can't you see it?
Yeah, like, even like, I mean, yeah, so in the end there is a bit of a romance, but the fact that the, again, like what was Sarah was saying, was that the focus was on them developing their friendship and their partnership in a way that the romance, like, they hadn't unpacked or even completely identified their romantic feelings for each other. It was more about respect and community and building something together first. And then, because then that for me meant that because I could see it coming a mile away. I knew that something was going to happen in the cafe. I just knew it was like that's just what the story was going to do, right? Because it was this cute, cozy thing. So I'm like, obviously there's going to be something happening to the cafe. The fact that they did not address, to some extent, properly and sort of label a little bit their feelings until the absolute end, after everything else had happened, at least to me, I was like, good. They're not going to do the trope of her world has fallen apart, but she at least has her lover. Like, I didn't want that at all. I loved the fact that they both were like, no, we have our lives. And even in the end, even though now we've decided that we are cozy, fuzzy, warm, and lovey to each other a little bit, like that's possibly a path that we're going to go down more, maybe in another book. Tandria got her own damn room. Like, I loved it. Like, she got all of her independence. And Viv was like, I recognize that this is important to you. We are not like, you know, a couple who share a bedroom and share our entire lives. You have all of these things that I recognize are important to your art, your all of these things. This is your room, your space, because we are partners in this business. So even though there was this romancy bit that I didn't even mention it in the introduction when I was saying my overall thoughts, because it was so low burner for me that I didn't even remember so much, because there was this other bit. So I really liked that. I appreciated that in the end, you know, they didn't automatically go, and we're going to now live together and be this other thing too. I liked that a lot.
Yeah, the mutual respect element was really lovely. Even, can I speak to even in the early stages where the incredible awkwardness as like as her like employer, Viv is like, oh, how do I say this? God, why is this so hard?
Yeah, I appreciated that.
Yeah.
I think I liked how Viv treated everybody though. Like, she just had respect for everybody she dealt with.
Yeah.
Sorry. I feel like and that wasn't any different between anybody else and Tandria. Like, it was just across the board, always just like that. And so I think that that's one of the reasons why for me it worked in the story, because it was just you know, this is how we treat everybody, and this is the friendship element. And this one happens to develop a little bit further into another direction, but it felt very natural and organic in terms of how it was done.
100%. Does anyone want to talk about Ratkin, the super cute chef?
So
Yeah,
cute.
let's go. We should go through.
Thimble?
Thimble, yep.
Thimble, yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
he was a Ratkin, but yeah,
He was a
his name-
Ratkin. Thimble
Yeah,
Ratkin.
yeah.
Yep.
We should go through all the characters, like
Yeah.
Cal.
I want to talk about
Thimble.
Cal as well, and I think
Yeah,
you just said the Madrigal.
I think the Madrigal. Elizabeth has some thoughts.
I
So
have a
yeah,
couple of thoughts, yeah.
we should talk about all of them, and of course the cat.
Yes. Yep.
Because it is a very character focused book.
Yes.
It
Mm.
is. It is.
It
Yeah.
is.
So,
Okay.
was there something you wanted to say about Thimble?
Oh, just that I really liked his character a lot. Like, the fact that he was always sort of just in the background, and I could just hear him tinkering away at stuff while everyone out
Yeah.
front was making the coffee. And
The
he-
pots and pans and
yeah, the pots and pans, and then the whole the bit about the oven, with the new oven, when he was like, I really want this one, and then noticed the price, was like, oh, but no, I understand, we can have the cheaper one, and
yeah. And he just said so much with so little words.
yeah.
Yeah.
But also, like, he used that to his advantage, where he's like,
Yeah.
look, I've set up this thing. It's like this bit of a barrier between me and the world. So if I have to deal with someone difficult, like the next door neighbor,
I'm
not
just
being
clueless
rude
and
because
oblivious.
I love the absolute focus that you get. Like, clearly, you know, when Thimble is working on a baked good challenge, it's like, yeah, I'm like, yep, I've
And
known
he's very
people like that.
decisive. He knows what he wants and he knows what he needs. He just goes and gets it.
Yes. Here's the list.
Yeah.
he just, when his character turned up, I was like, oh, this is so sweet. I grew up watching these cartoons. It was an anime series, but it was all the Aesop's Fables, but it was done in an anime like art style, and you can find them on YouTube if you go digging. You can still find some of them, but the way that this was written reminded me so much of that. So all the characters were sort of in my head, moving around in this like internal movie. And Ratkin looked like there was a character from that was almost like a Reaper Cheap style character, and he was running around. It was so cute. Anyhow, so gave me happy feels.
I appreciated his love of the coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was like,
yeah.
it is a sacred experience. We're
Yeah.
just gonna appreciate it quietly,
like so-
and you're gonna pay me in coffee.
The first, like, some of the very few words he said was like, coffee first.
And when she was
Yeah.
like, I'll just make sure there's a latte sitting in front of you all the time. It's like-
Yeah. Yeah. But I thought it was hilarious when he showed up for work and she's like, okay, if we go get this, he's like, you haven't learned this about cafe staff yet. The first thing you do is make coffee. Nothing else. So yeah.
Next character, someone pick a character if we're going through all the characters.
Cal. I love Cal.
I love Cal too. Yeah. Just his approach and it was just, and he just had a really great wit about him as well, quite fast.
And his compliment,
I think Travis Baldree's vocalization of Cal in particular was quite on point. He really got that kind of deep sort of thing going on in a way that was very distinctive.
Also, another character of very few words. I mean, he speaks more as things go on, but in the very beginning, all he basically just was in different ways to sort of communicate.
Yep.
Thoughts.
Has anyone known people like that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what is it? The artisan side of him, like well, you kind of need this, and then just gets on, like, and there it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
I also
I thought-
appreciated too, though, that they show when he's up against something that is too hard for him. Like when they want a bigger oven, but they haven't got the space, and he's like, "Yeah, I don't know what to do there. But I can build this stage for you, but like there's nothing to be done about the oven. But even though he did some amazing things, there was still like he still had limitations.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I did think he like the thing that made me laugh was, and obviously Trevor's Baldree has had a few tradies in his life, because that I was like, that whole thing of going, I'm going to put an oven. Why would I need an oven? You're going to need an oven. I was just sitting there going, wow, this is just like every builder, client conversation, isn't it? Like, no, you don't know best. I know best.
The best, yep.
I know all the regulations. Yeah, so
Yep,
I laughed at that. I was like, oh my God, classic tradie, classic builder. Yeah.
Henry?
Oh, Ken.
Which one?
Pendry. He's
Pendry.
the musician.
Pendry.
Ah,
Pendry.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
I kept getting mixed up in the audiobook when you were saying Tandry and Pendry.
Yeah,
It's
they're
just
a bit
like the names
close.
needed to be slightly different for the audio version.
Funnily enough,
course.
not a problem at all for me, for my brain, because one ending in I and one ending in a Y is a massive difference in my head.
When
Yeah.
you look at it, it is, but when you
Yeah,
hear it,
Hear it,
it's-
yeah.
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 Yeah, because he
Yeah.
whenever he would say it, he sort of would garble the first consonant sound a little bit. So they did come off similar.
Yeah, but at least they were completely different characters, so it was easy to tell once he started actually talking, or the voice or the
Yeah.
the
Context
context
made it
was
clear.
didn't make it difficult to understand who it was after he said the name.
Right. Did
Yeah.
anyone?
Whereas sometimes that can be really difficult.
I love
Was-
that he came in and his first thing was to try and do some alternate rock type stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh
Because
god,
Did anyone else? That was what I was going to say. Did anyone else Google the loot that he said he had? Because I tried to find something. Because
Oh no,
I had to do
that's just a magic guitar, basically.
yeah, magic guitar.
Okay,
Because
right.
it's
Was it Thermic
thaumagy is
flute?
magic,
Yeah.
basically. It was a
Yeah,
thaumic
so a
loop.
sig electric guitar.
Yeah.
What it
Right.
reminded me of when he first did it, it reminded me of the Back to the Future where
Yes.
he starts jamming out and everyone just goes quiet. I'm like, that's what that is.
Right. Yeah.
He's like,
Sorry,
"Ah,
I was
yep."
trying to find it because there's so many
soon.
things I Googled and they were real things. So I was like, okay, is this something that's just created for it, or is this, like I kept Googling all of the races, because I was like, is that something? Oh no, that exists, and and there's a whole thing like a hobnob. What else was there? Oh, I never knew I didn't know that there was such a thing as a stone fae, and I still don't quite know what the difference is between stone fae and fae, but there's a difference apparently. So I was Googling all this stuff. That was pretty cool.
Is Fennis the stone fae?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
No.
It's Fennis.
The stone fae was the Fennis was an elf. The stone
Elf.
fae
It was
was
the big
Ah.
thief.
guy with
Oh.
the big hat.
Lack.
No,
That guy.
not
No.
Lack. From her old adventuring group,
Yeah.
the one
So
that
it's
sets up the
Rune,
meeting with the
Tavis,
madrigal.
So it was Rune,
Oh.
Tavis, and Galena
Ah.
from the group.
Tavis.
Right.
Tavis.
Yes.
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 Yeah. She did say something about Lack, though, saying she thought he had a bit of stone fae, or was it a bit of elf? And there was something that I remember her thinking to herself about when she met Lack of what some I can't remember, and I don't have it to refer to.
What was your comment earlier, Chris, about the Potamus effect?
Oh yes. The book seems to contribute to what I'm doing, the Potamus effect, after another book we've read, where the elf, or one of the major elf characters, is the villain, and not even a mildly hidden villain. He's a full-on, flat-out, absolute bastard of a villain. Yeah.
I feel like that kind of follows in the tradition of making the English the villain.
Oh.
Okay.
Give someone a very posh accent and
Yep.
let them go.
Yeah. Flag means death, Kirsten. Yeah. Who else do we had? I really liked the regulars as well, like the gnome who came in to play chess with, which
Uranus
I believe
himself.
Yeah, with the cat. I believe the cat was playing chess.
No,
It
it's
was with
himself.
himself. He was
Yeah, he's
playing with
with
himself.
Really?
Yeah,
well,
I
it's got
didn't-
I
I
find out, like, yeah, it really bothers Chandra, doesn't it? Who's he playing chess with?
He was some
Ah.
kind of time wasn't linear for him, so it was himself at another
Ah.
time. So
Yeah.
at some
Okay,
other
whenever-
time, he's playing against himself in the present.
How
Which
did
is
you
why
figure
he's
that
making-
out?
That was the
Because
best
he
I
said
could.
it. He did
he
say
makes
it.
comments like
Yeah.
along the way about, oh, that hasn't happened yet. Oh, right. Never mind.
Especially towards the end, he makes them more and
Especially
more.
He does
towards the end.
literally
And he does say
say
he's
that
playing
he's
with
playing
himself.
against himself.
Yeah.
Like he literally says, "I'm playing against myself, just at a different time." Like
I
Yeah,
made the
we've-
first moves a
It's
while ago.
basically River Song.
Yeah. Yeah.
like it's
I missed all of that. I just presumed because he kept waiting because he said, "Oh, there you are." Like I was like, because the cat showed up, and then like things could begin.
I did
So thought
think
he was
something
waiting.
about the cat at
I
first.
thought it was a
but-
telepathic. I thought it was a telepathic thing. I
Thank you
couldn't.
for
Yeah,
explaining that.
I had no. Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so he's basically what's her name from Arrival? Got it.
Yes. There's also Hemington, the scholar.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I actually here's the storyline that I would like to follow more. I'm like, let's get more Hemington. I would like to go to the university with him and
I did
Yeah,
think it
I
was funny that he started out as a student that was like, studying in somewhere and not buying anything and taking
Yeah.
over. And I was like,
Even
yeah,
Starbucks.
student.
What is
yeah.
the
Starbucks
minimum I
customer.
need to buy to be able to sit and study quietly in this cafe for 4
He's like,
hours?
okay,
Yeah.
a coffee,
Yeah.
and then just leaves it. Like, yeah.
It was the equivalent, instead of using the Wi-Fi, he was studying the ley lines, but like the same kind of thing.
But he just needed a
Yeah.
table. And that's the only place that really had a table that he could.
Yeah. I do think it's hilarious though that he's like been brought up. I don't know why he thought it was acceptable, because if he tried to do that in the pub, why he would. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm like, why? If you're as posh as we think you are from your background, you would know kind of that this is not acceptable in any type of business. And I'm like, did you try and do this at the pub?
I
I guess
feel
there's
like
a lot of people
trying
at
it
the
on.
pub, so he probably
I
didn't
mean-
feel comfortable, whereas no one was in the cafe.
Yeah.
I feel like
No, but I mean, like going somewhere and not purchasing anything.
no, but
That's the bit. Yeah.
So I was wondering about that too, Sarah, and I was like, at first I was like, well, having been a poor student who really tried to push the boundary on that one in a lot of places, like, they're giving me looks. I better order another. What's the cheapest thing? Pot of tea.
Yeah.
But I just think maybe he was just awkward and clueless because he just came across as someone who's like,
Yeah.
awkward and
Yeah. And like you said, maybe he's never, because actually you're right. The best place to do it would be somewhere really busy because no one would ever notice. He did it somewhere quiet. So yeah. Which is like, yeah.
Hem was the one place where I feel like Viv didn't treat him with respect in some ways. That her persistent shortening of his name was not entirely respectful, and I found it a little bit uncomfortable.
I know why.
Yeah.
Fair.
I did too, because I feel like we should respect people's names, especially if they've asked. Like I've got friends who have culturally given names, and there's always a tendency to shorten them, and they're just like, no, you've learned to say it correctly, and I think that's absolutely, yeah, I felt that way too, Elizabeth. I was like, really? And yeah,
it felt out of character, didn't it? Because it's
Yeah.
like, what made her suddenly become disrespectful when she's not?
he's asked, and he asked a couple of times, and she did it quite pointedly, like when he said, I really would rather you didn't, and she said, and she, yeah, I was like, but because I was like, first couple of times it's kind of like, okay, you disrespected my business, now I'm, like,
Yeah.
But then it was like, yeah, so yeah.
But
And
it was she did kind of demonstrate her thought towards him by making iced coffee and that sort of thing. Yes, it's like a wider kind of smart business move,
Mhm.
but also like she has this particular customer that doesn't do hot drinks, well, until the end anyway. And she found something that he could appreciate.
Mm.
I was like, why did it take so long? I'm like, oh, he needs an iced coffee. I was like, where's the iced
Look,
coffee?
Is it the ice? Ice.
Yeah.
Ice,
Yeah.
yes, the ice.
And I do
Yeah, you
remember
need ice
thinking
'cause
that.
we
I
don't
was
have a
thinking,
refrigerator.
where were they going to get ice from? I do remember thinking that, because I was
Yeah.
like, normally they would store it over the winter and somewhere, and then, you know, and then they said, these gnomes are apparently gnomes, right? They were the ones
Yeah,
who
I'm
were
pretty sure it's the
amazing and
gnomes.
did,
Yeah.
yeah, because they made the coffee machine. Which, by the way, have we lost Bobby?
No.
No,
Mel-
she's
Yeah,
there.
Mel just
Mel
went.
has
Mel just dropped out. Uh-oh. Does that mean our
No,
recording
no,
has
she's
just
just
dropped out?
switched her camera off. That's
Oh,
all.
good. Okay.
Oh.
Sorry. I thought it's just, I thought, because Nye has it as well, so I got confused. Sorry, Nay has it as well.
She moved, which was confusing.
All I wanted to say was that I loved, because I remember thinking when the coffee machine turned up, I was like, how's this going to work? So I really loved hearing how the engineering of that was very cool. I really, as someone who has, not me personally, but my husband has a very expensive coffee machine, it was really cool to hear how much accuracy there was in putting it into place, and also pulling in some of the way, you know, it had been done in the past with especially those old Italian machines before there was, and Austrian machines, which is, by the way, how I imagined the place where she went. I imagined like a big Austrian coffee house, with the cake, coffee cake, Bobby.
I love that Viv, like the fire, and Viv runs in and grabs the coffee machine. It's like,
This we can't replace.
This cannot be replaced.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I was with her on that one. Yeah.
However, I did notice a bit of tendency towards hand wavy world building, like if you need technology, gnomes, which to be fair is kind of the precedent that, you know, Dungeons and Dragons set. So it's not like unheard of in the thing, but it was getting a little bit like
Wasn't the coffee dwarven, not gnomish?
No, it was
gnomish.
gnomish.
It was gnomish, yeah.
Yeah,
but the dwarf did deliver it.
Yeah, and the ice was,
and the
that
other
was the
dwarf
hand
really
wavy, but that was like going, oh, there's ice.
The gnomes made it, yeah.
Yeah, the gnomes made it. Yep.
Yeah.
And like, out of all the things that the gnomes could probably make in a fantasy world, ice is probably pretty easy in terms of inventions.
Having
maybe not technically, but in a fantasy world, I could see ice being like, the gnomes can make ice. That's something simple, like a refrigerator. But they didn't have a refrigerator. They just had ice.
Oh, I'm sure there'd be a way to do it in a steampunk world.
Yeah,
But I do like the idea of having used a stovetop espresso machine, which you basically put on the stove, and it'll even froth the milk if you know how to do it, which is really fiendishly difficult. I don't know if anyone else has had a go. But I'd love to see how you would upscale that to something that didn't use electricity. I'm like, well, how do you do this? Yeah.
I think I just figured out.
Sorry, go ahead.
I think I just figured out what the student was doing. It's actually that thing where he's trying to study and he's been called on it, and he's desperately trying to think of an excuse, come up with one, and then it got away from him because he actually got interested.
I figured that, because whenever she gave him the thimblet and he's just munching on it because he's not paying attention because she's distracted him with something else. And then he was like, oh, what? Because she asked him, how was the thimblet? He's like, what? And because he'd already eaten the whole thing as he was talking to her because he wasn't paying attention. Yeah.
That's me with all food. Like, what? Who ate all my food?
Oh, wait. Where's it all gone? Where did I put it? Oh, in my mouth.
Yeah.
So back to this coffee thing. I'm sorry, I don't remember what it's called. David, you might remember what this is called. We went we went and we did this like camping New Year's festival thing, mini festival thing with some friends from Amnesty when I worked for Amnesty International, and her father had this old Italian coffee thing, it looked like it was made out of motorcycle parts. It was not. It's an actual design. And there are larger upscale ones, but the idea is that you can set it either over a flame, like you can set it over fire on top of a grill, and it will do that, and it'll make your espresso shots, and it will also froth. It makes steam, so you can froth your milk and everything. But that was because like they had, like, it would work on a gas stove, it would work on a. The only thing I don't think it would work on would maybe be an induction oven, because of course the base isn't designed for that, but it would work on basically any other kind of stovetop and fire that you want. And that's actually what I imagined this big coffee machine to look like, only like bigger. But I've seen versions of this machine. He had just the single one that was on top of one burner, but I have seen larger ones that they're like big.
Yeah,
That's it.
Yeah. I was looking at these ones. There's ones that look like little pressure pots as well.
Yeah, that's the Atomic. Like, it's a classic design. They're incredibly expensive.
Mum has
that's
one that I
probably
covet. I want it.
800. They're about like, if you can get the old ones, but even getting the old original ones, which are made from aluminium, now they're made from stainless steel, and they're trying to put in a base so they can be used on induction.
Yeah, that's my mother's is an old aluminium. And they're really hard to get. Like, even those secondhand ones are like $800 because they still work very well. But like, if you think though, like, think about those Viennese coffee houses back, and there was no electricity, so they were using fires to boil the water, the boilers, to generate enough steam to get the pressure within the machine up. So I just liked how
it has a pressure valve on it.
So I liked how this was a little bit like, hand wavy, like, oh, there's a little oil wiki thing in here, as opposed to being like, there's a big thing of water and we heat it and then the steam comes up, which is what those old machines were, and the Italians, like, I don't know if you guys seen the ones with big eagles on top of them. Do you know the ones I mean? No, I'll find some photos of them. But anyway, I did enjoy that.
Yeah.
Speaking of those like little stove makers for the espresso and stuff along those lines, my parents like have gone through the whole coffee journey, despite the fact that I'm anti-coffee. The rest of my family are obsessed with coffee. And like, my dad full on can do the whole barista thing and everything, but he swears by those little pots as being much better than using a full-on machine and everything. He thinks that it makes a better coffee.
Oh.
If I can ever afford one of those, that's what I want. Like, I would replace the one that we have with that, because it's just amazing. But they're expensive. Like,
the one I just posted, it was like 1,700 or something. I'm like, whoa.
Wow. I mean,
you can get the pressure pot one for less than 300.
Oh, sorry, 1,200.
1,200.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah.
The little guy.
They don't go on sale.
Oh, look, the little guy does work on an induction top, apparently, because they literally sell an induction top for the little guy that you posted.
Wow.
Yeah.
There are some vintage ones, but I don't know if they work, like on Etsy. But we digress.
Possibly, if they were in half decent condition.
Yeah, and you can always replace the seals in them, the rubber seals in them.
Yeah.
That's the main thing to replace. In the same way that if you have an ordinary mocha pot / stovetop, the ones where they come up, there's just the coffee without the steam stuff, then you can definitely replace it. And you should, if you haven't used it for a while, that's the first thing you should do, is replace rubber seals.
Also, very importantly, G, we miss you.
Yes.
Yes.
Did anybody want to talk about Madrigal? We haven't spoken about them.
Yes, Elizabeth.
And I think
I'm
Elizabeth
just going to quickly say good night. See you later.
Good night.
Good
Night,
night.
David.
The Madrigal. Well, two things. One, it was very obvious from pronoun usage that they were going to be a woman, because they used every pronoun except she before she was introduced. So I was just like, yeah, okay, I know where this is going. Second of all, I wasn't entirely comfortable with the way that the Madrigal was just kind of let off the hook, if that makes sense. Because she is a crime boss.
I
Like
mean, the
that's
way
when
she
it
let
comes.
Viv off the hook, or
No, in the way the story lets the Madrigal off the hook.
Yeah, because she comes to a reasonable solution with Viv, but there's no reasonable solution for everybody else.
She would still be extorting from other businesses.
Yeah.
And while I recognize that she probably contributed a lot financially to Viv's rebuild, so she is kind of putting some of those funds back into the community. She is still taking those funds in the first place.
Yeah.
And so I found that a bit uncomfortable, while also recognizing that this is a cozy genre story.
It would. I don't think it could be the cozy read if they addressed it in a way that was
And I think that the way I kind of thought about it in my head was Viv was a sword for hire, you know. What's the name? There's an actual name for that. A sellsword, mercenary. Thank you. And you know, like she can't solve everybody's problems, if that makes sense. And that's why I kind of had it, you know, like she can only there's more cats. This is great. Yeah, because I thought I kind of was the same about it, but I was also like, Viv is it's not Viv's job to sort this. Like, we've seen the people who need to sort this arm in arm with them. So yeah, I kind of was like, and the thing that I thought was kind of interesting though was I was like, okay, she's giving her baked goods every week. That's
probably more expensive ultimately.
Yeah, I was kind of like, that's still extorting something out. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was like, okay, it's not money, but that's actually time and effort.
And also the money it costs to like for all the ingredients and everything. Like, it's
but then again, if the Madrigal's taking it at cost of what she would pay for them, the retail cost, but she's only giving them to she's only paying the wholesale cost, then it is a better deal for her. If it's equivalent to the retail cost, then she's making a good deal.
I'm not sure how many she's giving a week. Like,
no,
I don't know how much.
It was like a bag or something.
I didn't believe. I felt like the Madrigal didn't ring true. I was just like, if you're a crime boss, you can't, like, you've built your thing on fear and intimidation. You know, you can't let someone off like that. Like, you just don't. Like, that's the basis of that. And I agree, like, it was a cozy story, so we couldn't really have that. But I have to say, I just thought, no, that's not a real person. Like, it's not real.
I kind of let it off the hook for being a cozy read. I'm like, whatever. I don't want it. I don't want the conflict in this book. So I'm quite happy for it just to not, pass me by.
I rewatched the Godfather films, I think, last year, so I had a lot of the Godfather Part 2, where I don't know if you guys have seen it, but where we meet Marlon Brando's character, what's his name, but played by Robert De Niro, back in the day, and he and his partner are running a racket, and then the crime boss is like, keeps going on about, well, you need to cut me in, and then they kill him. So that's where I was kind of like, well, right, okay, Viv, well, this is all well and good, but I've seen The Godfather, and I think maybe you should hire your friends to sort this shit out.
I did like, was it Tandri talking to Viv about, or Viv herself doing if I go down that path, that's the path I'm trying to avoid. I'm trying to change
both of them at some point.
Yeah. Knowing that was, there be dragons if you go that way.
Yeah. I was interested that, Elizabeth, you kind of were like, oh, they're using the they pronoun. I did sort of think more, maybe it was because of the Godfather thing. I thought it was more like a crime family. So the Madrigal, and also, so that's where I went with it. It was like, okay, this is more than one person. This is probably a family. And then when we met the Madrigal, I guess I had a cartoon character because they talked about a severe bun and everything. So I don't know, I kind of was imagining like a Disney
Yes.
character.
Yeah.
And also, I don't know if anyone's read Tales from the City by Anna Madrigal, so I kind of also had her then in my head from that, which was pretty cool.
I was puzzled by the name Madrigal. Why would she?
Well, that's why I was kind of in my head when I was like going, well, yeah, it's a cool name though.
Couldn't relate.
A Madrigal is someone who would worn a mask. So I was expecting a Madrigal, talking about like in medieval Middle Ages time. Madrigals worn a mask and sung and played different characters. So I was expecting there to be a reveal of some sort about it not to be what we assumed on the top just from the name.
Right. Yeah. Which is what in Tales from the City, it's an anagram, and Anna Madrigal is a different person. I don't want to give it away because it's a good word. It's worth a read.
Is it a fantasy book?
No, not at all. It's it was a little bit like, it was written in the 70s and the 80s. And it's set in San Francisco and set in like a building, like a apartment tenement building, and it's all about the lives of the people who live there. Okay. But it's really cool. So it's very gay, it's very queer friendly. So it's really cool. So I recommend it anyway. And there's a TV series which actually was kind of fun too. But yeah, Anna Madrigal is not what you think who you think she was. So that's one of the reasons that she has that name. She takes that name for herself. Again, why I was annoyed about him. The name him as opposed to Hemington.
But yeah, if because a Madrigal as a song for multiple voices, that would kind of lend support for Sarah's theory about it being multiple people. But I did kind of appreciate the who she was and kind of acting against societal expectations in a parallel manner, perhaps, to Viv. That was kind of nice. But yeah, I still just found it difficult to move past her identity as a crime boss, which would, and I'm not someone who dislikes books about thieves or stuff like that. I'm all here for a good heist story, but in this particular context, it didn't work.
If you retract your claws, you won't have a problem. Come on.
They don't know how to do that for some reason when they should.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. When the reveal first happened that the Madrigal was a woman, the character I sort of saw her in my head as was, I was like, oh, we're gonna get a Granny. I think it's Granny Fairfax, which is if anyone's watched Kim Possible, she's the granny villain in Kim Possible, because Kim Possible is very much like this. She's a high school cheerleader who goes off and saves the world on the weekends from these very caricature, silly villains on a Disney Channel. It's great fun to watch. If you liked Buffy and stuff, I suggest go and watch it. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of 007 spoofing happening too. It's a lot of fun. But
nice.
Yeah, like this granny, she's got her knitting needles, but her knitting needles actually turn into like sabers because she can flick them around and they can. This old
That's
nanny.
cool.
She reminds you a lot of Tweety Bird's nanny, like grandma character.
Yes,
But
yep.
she's a
Right.
badass ninja villain. So I was expecting something like that. I was a little bit disappointed. I saw what he did. I got what the point was, but I was like, you've got all these hilariously caricatured, like villainous characters. Why couldn't we have that one who both hates Venice and finds him and finds her little goons to be quite annoying and frustrating, but is a serious villain herself? That would have been kind of fun. I don't know. But maybe next time.
Hey, Kirsten, this is who I was imagining as Tandri the whole time.
I have no contact.
Because she's got
Deadwood.
she said about the hair being cut severely and everything. So I was totally imagining her. I thought she'd be great.
I said Deadwood. Deadlock. Deadlock's what I meant to say.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Have not seen that.
Yep.
Oh,
Well, who would you relate
highly
that character
recommend.
to? She's like the sort of well-meaning sidekick that's always getting things wrong and
Just
is a bit of
love
a
her.
Yeah.
I love her so much. I
Yeah,
think she's my
yeah.
favorite character in the whole show.
And the actress who plays her is incredibly funny. Like I've seen interviews with her, so I was like, oh, she makes such a good
She's a
Tandre.
stand-up comedian, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. I just thought she was absolutely hysterical when I saw the interviews, like for the show. Anyway, that's who was in my head. I had her with little horns and her tail, and I was like, yep, she's my Tandre.
Well, we've cast her
It
now.
did not
We've
enter
cast
my
her.
head, but I can see it. Bobby, if you haven't watched Deadlock, I think it'd be up your alley because it's dark, very dark humor.
Funny. And
like,
it's in Tasmania.
It's in Tasmania, very Aussie. It's hilarious.
So
They call
Aussie.
it what was it? Australian, what were people calling it?
Australian Broadchurch.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh,
Funny Australian Broadchurch.
Yeah, I think that was the one of the Kates that was talking about it on one of the interviews was saying that she watched Broadchurch and didn't realize it wasn't going to be funny or something, and then watched it and was like, oh no, this isn't funny, and then they went, we should make a funny version of this.
Yeah. Anyway, digression. I just needed to share my Tandre.
I didn't see that when I was
work.
reading, but I can see it now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so do we have any other characters?
Amity.
Oh, Amity, of course.
And what's his face?
One.
Fenris?
Fennis.
Oh, Fennis. Well, we know what Fennis is.
Fennis.
I feel like it's giving Fennis too much attention to even discuss him, and he wants
Fair
that.
enough.
I did enjoy the poetic justice of him going to all the trouble to steal the stone and then it being like, oh, the stone's going to be like attracting like, so you're just going to attract a bunch of other assholes for you.
Like, yeah, we'll just leave him to it. It's fine. Oh, good.
Mama.
That's that's punishment enough. I did like it was very cat-like when they were like, "Oh, come lay down in the nice soft bed I made you."
Oh,
the nice
yeah.
soft blanket.
And
No, and then all of a sudden they're like jump down, and the cat jumps out of nowhere in the middle of the night, and they didn't know they was there.
How
And
did
then
you
the
get
cat
there?
goes back to the bed
Yeah.
that she would not sleep in when they wanted her to.
So
Like,
cute,
yeah, that's typical cat.
We see you giving us the side eye there, Song.
Yeah.
Kiki sitting
Yeah.
here looking at me. too.
Yeah, Kiki's tail has come across.
Did anyone else pick up that? And I don't know if this is something, by the way, someone tell me if it's a D&D thing, but the gnomes and the Diacat seem to have a kinship in this novel. Like the gnomes, like there was the gnome whose name I've forgotten, the one who likes to play
Galena.
chess with. Yeah, he
Oh
played
no,
chess with
Galena
himself.
was her
Oh,
friend.
friend, yes, yeah. So she
With the
kind of
knives.
like
The other gnome,
and the goggles, a steampunk gnome, loved her. And then so I was like, oh, maybe it's just something that they've got a kinship with Diacats, which I was like, oh, I'd like to.
Was the chess player was a gnome? Wasn't
Yeah. So I kind of I was loved that it was the
I think
loved it.
my mental image of that though was the fact that gnomes are typically of minor stature, and a Diacat, well, it's a Diacat. It's not exactly a small cat.
They'd be like horses.
Yeah.
Equivalent of horses.
Yeah, but everyone else was terrified, but the gnomes never were. They just
Certain
went,
amount of
oh,
respect required.
Pat.
hello, come here, Rubs.
I feel like that's an indication of the kind of gnomes, these particular gnomes, because the chess player, regular guy, he was an old adventurer. And so he has no sense of fear, as far as I can tell.
Right.
And then
Galena wouldn't either.
Galena likes to
Yeah.
stab things, so like and like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
They
Right.
like She
Yeah.
likes scary things. He just,
Yeah.
is so out of Tom and Minold that he's not really scared by anything.
Yeah.
Gnomes have tiny angry syndrome, like tiny people. They're like, no, I give zero fucks how big you are. I will end you, and I'm not afraid of how big you are. And
There's
that's
a
why
reason
cats like
Knack,
them,
knack,
because they're
beagle.
not all like, oh my god, a dire cat, let me hide. They're like, oh my god, you're so cute, let me love you.
Yeah. And I kept thinking when they said the author just described the rumble of the purse so beautifully. I'm like, stuff. Pendry and his lute playing. You just need that as your soundtrack. That's ASMR happening in your cafe right there.
Also, particularly like the fact that the descriptions definitely gave you the sense that it was, it's not a small cat.
Yeah. Not
I
small.
found it hard to work. I was trying to figure out the size because they gave like the weight, which was good. So I was kind of like, okay. And so I was like, okay, well, how big's a lion? A lion's 100. So it's around 60, 65 kg, right? So a lion, I looked up a lion. Lion was like 130 kg. I was like, oh, half of that. Looked up a lynx. How big's a lynx? 10 kg. I'm like, I don't know where this fucking cat is.
Sarah, I was thinking about the size of an Irish wolfhound.
Oh, what?
Okay.
Yep.
An Irish wolfhound. They're big.
Yeah.
They're big.
I really-
or a Malamute. You know, a Malamute, because Malamutes are very cat-like anyway. So, and they're big and fluffy.
Yeah.
I laughed out loud when there was the pounce moment of Amity for Fennis, and you know, it was just like I just visualized this massive.
Is that when he was first there? Because I love that bit where he was like, and Amity got in the way and was hissing at, you know, it was like and making, you know, hissing noises, and then after, yeah, was it Tandra going, you recognize an asshole when you see one? Get rubs. I was like,
No, I think she was referring to the final scene with Fennis, where the Magicals men have him surrounded, and then they back off, and he's like, "Oh, yeah, well, I'm golden here," and then boom.
That was it.
Good.
And the cat gets the last laugh.
And the cat gets the last laugh.
Very cat-like. Yeah.
Where do we think the world's going to go? Because I believe the next book is a prequel set in the library system, which is called
Bookshops and Bone Dust.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, the names of the libraries, they're not called libraries, they're called anthuriums or something in this world.
Anathemums, maybe something like that. Like
Arcanum? Arcanium? I don't know.
So what? Sorry, what is the next one supposedly?
It's a prequel. I was guessing it was probably the story of her going and researching everything about the Stalwart Stone, maybe. Because she mentioned that all this time that she did a lot of
that was
research.
what was in that last chapter. If you
The last
listen to the
story.
audio book, the last chapter was like her sort of going like, you know, talking about what seems to be like her job before the job where they go get the stone.
The prequel short story, because apparently that's the newer edition had a prequel short story.
Yes, which is in this book, and I just got to acknowledgements and went, and I'm done. And then it wasn't until I started this hangout and everyone was like, read the short story. I was like, what?
I haven't read it.
Oh, I didn't know either.
That'll be my bedtime story before I go to bed tonight.
But there's an actual book that comes out in November, the next book, and it is a prequel, and it's got Viv in a library, and it's Books and Bone Dust. So I was thinking it had to do with all of her research that she was doing.
Possibly,
before.
It sounds like it's going to be an adventure still, just in the bookshop.
That's the best kind of adventures. We like bookshops. It's great.
Yeah,
I wonder. Sorry, go.
I was just going to say, she gets an injury. She's spending time in the bookshop, and then she has a suspicious traveler in grey, a gnome with a chip on her shoulder, a summer fling, and an improbable number of skeletons.
Also, it might be when she meets what's her name? I keep forgetting her name. Yeah.
Galena.
Yeah.
Galena. Yeah.
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 Certainly,
it sounds like it. A gnome with a chip on her shoulder. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably looks like there's another ratkin.
Yeah, it does. So I guess we'll see.
And something that looks a bit like a pug. It's a bit hard to tell.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to overlap with the short story that's at the end of Legends and Lattes. This seems like it's much further back than that, even before she joins up with her last adventuring group.
So maybe
Seems
it's the story of her establishing that adventuring group.
Possibly, yeah,
because
it seems
family
like
type thing.
it seems like she was part of another mercenary company and it wasn't going well.
Right.
So,
do you think we'll follow any of the other characters and have I don't know, cozy, low stakes reads
Please.
with any of them.
Please, I would like that.
Who could say?
I would so read a Calamity prequel. Like I would definitely like when Cal was younger, and there's got to be some good story there.
Or he gets his next assignment and he's feeling, like that could be good. He's somewhere, building something for somebody. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, the bones, the boat
is that-
story, like is he a shipwright, boat builder? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's a boat builder, yeah.
Decent
Or
story.
perhaps he even figures out his own retirement plans.
Yep.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
It would be cool. Yeah.
I have not heard any news of further books, but I'm not super in the loop at the moment when it comes to publishing news.
I went checking earlier. There was nothing there either that I saw. Only the prequel.
Yeah.
Because the city is also really cool that the author's built. Like it's obviously very much in his mind's eye. Like he knows where everything is, if that makes sense. I couldn't kind of keep track of it, but I was like, I feel like I'm in good hands and we're going east. That's good. Okay. We're going to the markets,
He's a D&D player. I think he's like he used
Right.
to do all of that sort of stuff. So I think he's got good sort of abilities to, if not necessarily have it entirely mapped it out, then wing it
Then
well
get
and
it
make
right.
it sound good.
Yeah, but that sounds like a really cool town, if that makes sense. Like it's big enough that you could meet other people, or like that marketplace sounded really interesting. And the bloody spice guy.
Yeah.
They should have a spice guy story.
I want a Spice Guy story, and I want a florist setting up, and I want an apothecary, and just like lots of little shops being set up.
Yeah. I
I
want to
want
make
one
this
about the post office. I want one about the postal system. Like apparently,
Yes!
Oh yeah.
that'd be very interesting.
Yeah. So there's enough of the world built up that it's very cool. So I'd like to
I'm much more interested in that than the prequel, honestly. I would prefer to have lots of little stories based around the
I was disappointed when I found out there was a prequel, that it was a prequel coming
Yeah.
out. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, we're gonna get more in this, and then it was like, oh, I think it's a prequel. And
Yeah. I like where we've left these characters too. Like I like this, but there's enough other side characters, or I guess, as I said, the city is such a cool place. Like I love the stories that, like, even meeting the publican who she has dinner when she has the pork, like his story, I was like, God, it's very cool. But yeah, Spice Guy, we should have Spice Guy stories that isn't riding worms. That would be cool. Yeah.
It was quite funny. I was trying to look for a picture of dire cats, and instead an image came up that's a cat. It's like an illustration of a cat with a headset on and like glasses with like little squares reflected in them, and it said, "Where did all your Zoom friends go?" ? By the New York Times. I'm like, they're right here. Nowhere. They're right in front of me.
They're right here.
When everybody started playing with Zoom, I was like, I'm already there, people.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Are we
I
good
do.
to wrap up?
Yeah,
So,
I
yeah.
am.
Good job. Debut novel hit.
Yes, brilliant.
Alrighty. So for anybody out there watching, thank you for joining us. And next month, we are reading Only Bad Options by Jennifer Estep. I hope I said that right. Which is Karina's pick, and she's not here tonight, so she can't talk about that. But we'll see you then. Bye.
Bye.